In The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7, we finally got a glimpse at Boba Fett's armor in its fully painted and nearly completely restored state for the first time since the unfinished Clone Wars episodes. After completing his restoration, Boba Fett chose to leave his famous helmet dent untouched and fully visible on his newly restored armor. So how did he get this dent in his helmet? I'm going to break down exactly how Boba Fett dented his helmet and why he might have kept it visible. Before we get into it, make sure to hit the subscribe button with the bell button on to be notified as soon as I release more Mandalorian Season 2 content. So, from The Mandalorian Chapter 15, we now know that Boba Fett's current armor did actually belong to his father before him, and probably saw quite a bit of action. This is absolutely awesome, but is also a bit weird, as we know that during the Clone Wars, Boba Fett attempted to assassinate Mace Windu by planting a blast device inside of his father's helmet. After the destruction of the Republic vessel known as the Endurance, Jedi Generals Mace Windu and Anakin Skywalker traveled to the site of the crash, hoping to find survivors. After discovering the bodies of clone troopers who looked like they had survived the crash but were later executed, they moved to the bridge of the ship. While on the bridge, Anakin spotted a Mandalorian helmet among the rubble. At that exact moment, the memory of Jango and Boba Fett rushed through Mace Windu's mind, but he was unable to stop Anakin from triggering the blast inside of the helmet. This trapped both of the Jedi in the wreckage of the ship, and of course destroyed the helmet in the process, raising the question, what helmet is Boba Fett using now? The answer to that is most likely that Jango simply had more sets of armor, and Boba just took a new helmet from one of these sets. We already know that Jango had more than one jetpack, so the same probably goes for the helmet too. To be fair, we don't even know if Boba used his father's real helmet for the attack on Mace Windu, as it was one of the last items that would remind him of Jango, but for now, we have to assume it was the real one. Sometime after this assassination attempt on Mace Windu, Boba repainted one of the sets of his father's armor into the awesome green color that he wore for the rest of his days, late in the Clone Wars, and wore it on missions before the fall of the Republic. And this is where his infamous helmet dent is added. In the late days of the Clone Wars, Boba Fett teamed up with one of the galaxy's other well-renowned bounty hunters, Cad Bane. The two were hired for a rescue mission on Tatooine, where a group of savage Tusken raiders had kidnapped a local child and taken them hostage. Obviously, the parents of the child were terrified at what might happen, but Boba and Cad Bane were on the job and ready to come to the rescue, for the right price, of course. On the mission, Boba and Cad Bane began to bond deeply and form a deep mentor and student relationship, mainly because Cad Bane had known his father, Jango, for a long time. Awesomely, Bane also chose a completely new bounty hunting outfit, as well as being accompanied by Todo 360, his tiny techno service droid. On top of this, they also brought the fierce bounty hunters Aura Singh from The Phantom Menace, Serapaz and Embo from the Bounty Hunters episode, C-21 Highsinger and Lats Ratzi from the Bounty episode, and finally Bosk from The Empire Strikes Back. Unfortunately, towards the end of their mission, Bane and Boba's relationship began to very rapidly degrade, as Boba began to consider the harm they were doing to innocent people, keeping them caged up, imprisoned, and even killing them. Bane of course had no care at all for anything but the success of the mission, and the payment at the end, putting the two bounty hunters at each other's throats, brewing a horrible tension between them. Eventually, the group arrived on a platform city, and Boba was not happy that they were taking innocent civilians hostage for their mission once again. This snapped Boba and was the final straw for what he thought were Bane's immoral actions. This caused all of the other bounty hunters to turn their weapons on him, ready to fire should Cad Bane say the word. Fortunately for him, Cad Bane was not interested in assassinating him on the spot, but instead quickly challenged him to a traditional Western standoff to see who would be the one left standing and who would take on the reins as the galaxy's most feared bounty hunter. After tensely hovering their hands over their blasters in Western style, the two both fire piercing red blaster bolts at each other, knocking them both to the ground. Embo, Bosk, and the other bounty hunters are absolutely shocked by this, realizing that their leader is probably not going to be standing up from this, and that they will soon be forced to unite behind Boba Fett. Eventually, Boba Fett manages to stand up, being saved by his Mandalorian helmet, but leaving a deep dent right where Bane's scorching shot should have pierced his skull. Boba Fett is extremely grateful for his armor's strength, and honestly, he probably had a thought in his mind where he thanked his father Jango for basically saving his life through creating that helmet. That is the origin of his deeply dented helmet. At this point, Cad Bane is presumed dead, and sadly hasn't been seen in any canon content set after the Clone Wars. He's one of my favorite bounty hunters, and I know a lot of you guys also love him, so it's honestly sad that they haven't utilized him at all since this unfinished scene. Although these unfinished Clone Wars episodes aren't technically canon, the Lucasfilm story group have stated on a few occasions that they are taking anything major that happens in these story reels as if they did actually happen in the story. Despite this, I'm still hoping that we do see more of Cad Bane in future content, because the unfinished story reels aren't officially canon, so they can easily go back on their word, especially with Dave Filoni, the man who created and wrote Cad Bane's story, leading the charge on many stories and new content in the Mandalorian era. I can definitely see Cad Bane making an appearance in The Mandalorian Season 3 if they do go this direction, because he is honestly a better fit for the show than Mando himself. If the show wasn't titled The Mandalorian, Cad Bane would be a fantastic main character. He is literally the embodiment of the cowboy western character, and shown that throughout his story arc. Every episode of The Mandalorian are just very creative takes on samurai and western tropes, which is awesome and would suit Bane perfectly. But that leaves the question, why did Boba not remove the dent from his helmet despite it not being made of Beskar, and instead the softer Jura steel? One reason could be that the dent reminds him of his triumph against Cad Bane, and a reminder that the armor saved his life from almost certain death. You could definitely see Boba holding huge respect for the armor and equipment that saved his life, so this would be a pretty good explanation. Another reason could be that it reminds him that he stood up for innocent people, even though it almost cost him his life. Now that Boba has seemingly transitioned away from purely being a ruthless bounty hunter and actually has some compassion towards Din Djarin, maybe he wants to remember the good deed he did all the way back during the Clone Wars. Just like Cad Bane said in the unfinished episode, Boba was always trying to stand up for those in need. This might remind him of the time just after his father lost his head to Mace Windu, a time where he was in great need of support and a proper bounty hunting mentor. It could also be that he just doesn't want to reforge or change his father's helmet at all, if he doesn't have to, because of the deep emotional connection to it. But let me know down below why you think Boba left the dent in, despite being easily fixable since the metal isn't Beskar. The out of universe reason is probably because the dent is so unique, having appeared in the armor for many years, and on top of already touching up and repainting the famous green armor, removing the dent may have felt too far removed from the original. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have already shown that they want to stay as loyal as possible to what came before them, so they probably think it's way too much to have both the armor repainted and the dent gone, which also serves as a reference to Dave Filoni's work on the Clone Wars even though the episodes weren't released. So that is exactly how Boba Fett dented his helmet during the Clone Wars, in a tense and emotional standoff with Cad Bane. And to end it off, let me know down below right now, do you prefer Cad Bane or Boba Fett as your favourite bounty hunter? Thanks so much for watching, really hope you enjoyed the video. Also remember to subscribe to be notified as soon as I release my Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 8 full breakdown as soon as it releases. Cheers guys, hope to see you in the next one.